It feels like economic uncertainty is just normal now, right? But what if all that chaos is actually an opportunity in disguise? Well, today, we're going to dive into what's called the Adaptive Leadership Playbook. This is your guide to not just getting through the storm, but actually thriving because of it. So let's jump right in.
So, this is the big question, isn't it? It's probably on your mind constantly. The old advice, just hang in there, weather the storm, it just doesn't cut it anymore. It's time to stop letting the waves toss you around and start grabbing the wheel and steering with some real intention, no matter how choppy things get.
And hey, let's be real for a second. The environment out there, it's tough. What used to be a once-in-a-decade kind of disruption now feels like it's just another Tuesday. This constant state of chaos has really become the new backdrop for everything we do.
So, the big question is, how do you actually lead in this new normal? Well, the answer really boils down to a huge mindset shift. It's about moving away from just reacting to problems as they pop up, and instead proactively getting out there and shaping your own future. And that, right there, is the heart of adaptive leadership.
And you can see the difference right here. Think about it like this. Reactive leadership is always playing defense. It's just about managing what's happening right now, focusing on all the threats. But adaptive leadership, that's all about playing offense. It's looking for opportunities, it's empowering your teams to be super fast, and it's all about building the future you want. That one little shift in perspective, it literally changes the entire game.
Okay, so that sounds good in theory, but how do we make it practical, right? Well, we're about to walk through a 4-part resilience playbook. Think of these as core strategies you can start using like tomorrow to build an organization that's truly resilient. All right, our 4 big plays are innovation, agility, transparency, and foresight. It's best to think of them as building blocks, Each one makes the other stronger, and together they create this really powerful formula for success. So let's kick things off with the first play. First up, innovation. Now, what's the typical move in a downturn? It's to cut back, right? You just hunker down and hope for the best. But here's the thing, the research tells a totally different story. The companies that actually come out of these periods stronger are the ones who do the opposite. They double down on creating new value. We're talking better products, smarter processes. They're the ones who lean in while everyone else is pulling back.
And look, taking action is everything here. This isn't just a theory. It means actually bringing together teams from different departments to break out of those old silos and stale ways of thinking. It means being bold enough to shift your budget to digital projects that will actually make a real difference. And it means using frameworks that work, like design thinking, to really spark creativity and get things done fast, not just sit around and talk about it.
And this really gets to the core of it. This is that mindset shift we talked about. A truly innovative culture looks at a chaotic market and doesn't see a threat. No, it sees a massive opportunity to build something new, something way better. All right, on to our second play, agility. And this one is all about speed. An agile organization can turn on a dime. It can pivot almost instantly because decisions aren't getting bogged down at the top. Instead, you're empowering the people who are actually on the front lines to solve problems the moment they see them. So how do you actually build this kind of agility? Well, you can use popular frameworks like Scrum or OKRs to keep everybody aligned and focused on the right things. But, the real magic, that happens when you create these super fast feedback loops. That's what lets you learn and adjust in real time. And this is so critical. It means you have to train your managers to be leaders who guide change, not just supervisors who check off a list of tasks. Okay, our third play might just be one of the most important of all. Transparent communication. Here's why. In uncertain times, when leaders go silent, it doesn't create calm. Not at all. It creates fear, it creates anxiety. The only antidote to that is open, honest dialogue.
And what does that look like? It means being brutally honest about what you know and also what you don't know. It means getting your entire leadership team on the same page, singing from the same song sheet. And listen, this can't be a one-way street. It absolutely positively requires creating real channels for your team to ask those tough questions and feel like they're actually being heard.
Just think about how powerful that is for a second. When your team genuinely trusts that you're telling them the truth, all that nervous energy, all that anxiety, it doesn't just disappear. It gets transformed. It gets channeled into focused, unified action. You're literally turning anxiety into alignment.
And that brings us to our fourth and final play, scenario planning. Look, nobody can predict the future, right? So the next best thing is to prepare for a few different versions of it. This isn't about trying to find a crystal ball. It's about building a strategy that's tough enough and flexible enough to handle whatever comes its way.
Let's make this super concrete with a real-world example. Think back to when the world went into lockdown. There was this one global retail brand that was suddenly facing an absolutely massive crisis. They knew they couldn't just sit there and wait for things to go back to normal. They had to act, and they had to act fast.
So what did their playbook actually look like in action? Well, first, they didn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. Nope, they mapped out several different futures. Everything from the best-case scenario to the absolute worst. Then, they made a really gutsy pivot. They shifted their entire business model to e-commerce and curbside pickup. And finally, they completely restructured their operations, basically on the fly, to support this brand new way of working.
And the result of all that proactive planning? Get this, they didn't just survive, they actually strengthened their customer loyalty and kept the revenue coming in, all while their competitors were still scrambling, just trying to react. Now that is the power of foresight.
Okay, so putting this playbook into practice is obviously going to bring up some tough questions. So let's do a quick leaders huddle here and tackle two of the most common questions we hear from leaders who are in the trenches right now.
First question, and it's a big one. Beyond all the strategies and frameworks, what does a truly resilient leader actually look like? How do they act day to day?
Well, to put it simply, they are forward-thinking and incredibly adaptable. They stay calm and transparent, especially when the pressure is on. And maybe the most important thing of all, they're innovators who create a sense of psychological safety. They make it feel okay for their teams to take smart risks, to experiment, and to speak up without fear.
Okay, second question. What about the team? Because let's face it, when things are uncertain, people are worried. So how can leaders best support their employees through all of that?
You know, the key here is to focus on the things you can actually control. Offer flexibility in how and where people work if you can. Really invest in your people. Give them chances to learn new skills, to upskill, and above all else, be as clear and direct as you possibly can be about the health of the business and what their role is in its future. So, as we start to wrap this up, let's just pull it all together. This whole playbook, it's not just about surviving the next quarter. It's about something much bigger. It's about fundamentally changing the way you lead so you can build an organization that is truly ready for anything. And that really is the core message here, isn't it? In a world that is changing this fast, being adaptable isn't just a nice-to-have skill anymore, it has become the ultimate competitive advantage. So, I'm going to leave you with one final question to think about. When you look at those 4 plays we talked about, innovation, agility, communication, and planning, what is the very first adaptive step that you are going to take, maybe even tomorrow, to start shaping a more resilient future for your organization?